So you want to ace your college presentation and really nail down that grade that you've been wanting. Well, look no further because I'm here to talk about how you can definitely ace your college presentation or just do better in general in presenting. Now, as a college student myself, I've definitely done a ton of presentations in the past, and I've definitely seen some improvements in my grades in terms of presentation etiquette. So I don't want to gatekeep, and I definitely do want to share these tips with you guys to help you guys out as well. The first tip I do want to say is to plan and prepare. Now, you want to start by understanding the purpose of your presentation. What message am I trying to convey? And what is the goal of this presentation that I want my audience members to take away at the end? You want to make a solid outline, like, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about the first time, the second time, the third time. So make sure you hit everything from point to point in an order that the audience would understand and easily follow through. And the timing, make sure you're not rushing it. I know back then I used to get really nervous and just rush my presentations. Now I've kind of just taken a little pause and just talk naturally and make sure you're easy to understand by other people. Second is to use visual aids effectively, right? You don't want to make a really boring presentation where it's just a white background and black text. Try to add some transitions, try to add some animations. A really good tip that I like to do is GIF images because they, have some animations on the slide. They make things a little more interesting. And also add different logos, different icons from different online websites. That could definitely help your presentation just stand out. If you're talking about percentage numbers, use a chart. If you're comparing different data, again, use a chart, a pie chart, a bar graph, whatever it may be. It'll help you out a lot in presenting data. Keep them simple and easy to see, but don't make it boring. Too many things going on isn't good as well. Have some good amount of blank white space, but have things filled up to make sure it's not boring. Number 3 is to engage with your audience. You want to make eye contact to your audience. Make gestures, like hand gestures definitely keep people interested, right? If you're just talking here like really like a robot, no one's really gonna want that. You want to have some good energy in your voice, have good hand gestures like I'm doing right now, right? When I'm talking to a camera, I love moving my hands because it makes me more animated. It makes me kind of stand out more, and that's what you should do as well in your presentations. And you can even encourage participation by, encouraging people to ask questions. I know a lot of teachers and professors love that. And another good pointer I want to say is don't read off the slide. That's a no-no. And you should always condense your sentences to, 7 to 8 words max. And you would rather just go over that point yourself and do a more in-depth explanation. Now, number 4, I do want to say that you should be confident and have good volume. Again, you want to be standing up straight, making sure you're keeping the audience engaged with eye contact. And most importantly, you want to speak with good volume. If you're speaking really softly and no one's going to be able to hear you, it's kind of hard, especially for people in the back of the room to even hear what you're saying. You want to have a good voice. You don't want to be yelling, but you do want to have a really good voice, a good voice that will project outwards. And make sure when you're talking, you're not talking to paper, right? You're not looking at an index card and talking to it. You want to make sure you're engaging with your audience with that, again, that eye contact and the volume, right? You're projecting your speech out that way rather than this way towards the ground and towards the paper. And that is a really good important note about delivering your presentation. Number 5 is to always rehearse and practice. This used to be a bad habit of mine where I get my Google Slides done and I kind of don't really practice and just kind of wing it on the day of. Really bad idea because first of all, you're up there on the spot. You don't even know what you wrote, right? You kind of just forgot about it and now you're just looking at it again for the first time as a presenter. And you're like, well, I don't really know how to kind of explain this. And you just end up reading off the slide. You want to make sure you have time to rehearse. You want to make sure you have time to practice. Grab some index cards if you're allowed to and just kind of make, easy bullet points to remember. Maybe you could present to your parents. Maybe you could present to your siblings, right? Just have a small audience that you could present to and give feedback. It's always good to get feedback before you actually do your presentations to your close family and friends. Number 6 is to expect the unexpected. You should always have a backup plan, right? If you have a presentation on the Google Slides or online, you want to make sure you have a copy on a flash drive. And not only talking about technical wise, you could also practice for, difficult questions that the audience might ask. Maybe your professor or your teacher or your supervisor, whoever it is, may ask you very hard questions. So you just want to be prepared for those things that come along the way. One way I've kind of prepared in college is that before I presented, I always made sure the day before to test it out on that computer I'm going to present, right? If I'm presenting in a certain room, I would just plug my flash drive in, kind of just go over it, try it a little bit. So I want to make sure that all the, animations, all the transitions are working, especially if you're presenting in like different versions of, for example, PowerPoint or, Google Slides with different browsers. Some of the functionalities may not even work, so you definitely want to test it out the day before, or the hour before or something like that, to make sure you could do some last minute changes in case something goes wrong. Now, last but not least, number 7 is to have a good conclusion. You want to make sure you summarize your main points and get a strong impression on what your idea or your presentation was all about. You don't want to just end it off with a simple thank you, right? And just a little slide. You kind of want to finish off with something that will make the audience remember your presentation. You want to get the audience thinking by the end of your presentation. Now, this is a good point to get a good grade, especially if your professor specifically remembers your presentation. Remember, your professor is going through, 20 plus, all the other students' presentations. You need to make yours stand out somehow. I'm not saying you should go all out on working on the details, the graphics, but really just convey that message, get the other person thinking, get the audience thinking like, oh, that's a really good point. I really never thought of that. If your presentation is able to have that impact on the audience, I will tell you that presentation will go a long, long way. And with that being said, that concludes my tips that I've had for you and that I've applied myself in my college years. Now, I definitely hope you find these tips helpful because they definitely helped me out a lot when I was presenting back then in college. Again, I used to be super nervous at presentations, but after following these tips, I was more at ease and I was more prepared, and I definitely got better grades throughout the years as I kept presenting on and on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit a like and hit the subscribe button down below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys!